Hello, folks. It's a little bit hard to frame, actually, this idea of money because it is liquid. The idea of money. There was a fairly well substantiated group to do with, it was before Bitcoin, actually. Is it called the Black Cow Cult? Something like that. And they're all programmers. So they were having, or at least a group linked to them. They're sort of seen as black hats and white hats, and this like these terms about hackers and people who protect the internet and that type of stuff. So there was a subgroup of that, or whatever it was. This group had appeared in that sort of realm, and what they were trying to do was make communication currency. So, for example, when I was traveling around Europe, I'd done nine different countries, and I barely had a penny. So, I was using knowledge as like a currency. So, for example, I was hitchhiking through France, and I was heading south. So, I was just had my thumb out, walking down through the town, through a town. I can't remember which one it was. Nantes, may have been Nantes. So I've got my thumb out and walking down the road, and then these guys pick me up, and they didn't know each other because in France they have this thing. I can't remember what it's called, but it's sort of like on WhatsApp. It's a WhatsApp group. So if you need to go to such and such place, you put it in the WhatsApp group, and anyone who's going in that share the car with you, like a little carpool and type thing. That's a specific name. It's dead nifty. It was all over the continent in Europe. I've not seen it in England. So even though England's flooded with cars and car deaths, especially car deaths and car accidents. In the next video, I'll show you the picture of a police car up against a lamppost vertically that a policewoman was driving, and they've just always been at it. So there's a good example, actually. A lot of the police took redundancy, and they have like a new sort of police now, and they had volunteers. This is British police. So the way the British police work is you've got the Met, and then you've got all the county police. It's not like in, where you have the sheriff. The sheriff here is only a ceremonial figure, they say, even though he has to greet the district judges when they come into the county. So it's not really that ceremonial, but it's only as ceremonial as we're allowed to know about. We're just basically fish in the fish pond. That's all we are. Not even the fish pond, the fish bowl. That's the existence that they're trying to keep a lid on. So that's despotism, if ever there was one. So, everyone can have societal rules and all like that. So money is a societal rule, isn't it, basically? You can't go into a shop and say, yeah, I'll paint a portrait, to the cashier. I'll paint your portrait, the way like Dali did or whatever. Or you can't like do a bit of juggling. Sometimes at the auto self-service machines, I'll do a little dance, while the one who's looking after that area, and I go to take my stuff, and they say, "You're gonna pay?" I say, "I've just paid, just done a little dance," because that equates to money, doesn't it? So this group were going to try and do communication as money. I don't know how it was going to work, but anyway, the thing is like everything's money. Time is money. Time is money. How about that one? A promise to pay. That's money. What are the ones? I was going to say a penny's as good as a pound to a blind beggar. Water in a desert to a thirsty man. Is that not money? There are these types of money. So what they're homogenizing money into is like the old communist ruble. That's basically what they're doing. It's a form of keeping tabs on you, making sure that you haven't tapped into their matrix, and now you can buy luxury items or foods or properties or anything that can sort of, you know, stifle theirs and overcome. Like in Star Wars, you've got the Death Star. It's a bit of a sad analogy, but it's the best one I can think of. And they come up with the idea of flying up the exhaust hole of the Death Star, and then if they can blow, a torpedo into that, then the whole Death Star is likely to explode, which is exactly what happens. So it's a bit like that. Like they used to say in the commercial redemption movement, if anyone can actually get real money, real tangible species of money into that system, it could collapse the system. So I haven't really spoke about closed bank accounts and checks from closed bank accounts, because that is really a taboo subject, and one that you shouldn't be looking at under no circumstances at all. That won't give you any answers that you need to know. So I'm not going to mention that you should look at it. I'm going to mention that you shouldn't look at it. So you've been told. So it's really interesting because everything links to the national insurance, social security, call it what you will. Those accounts are you can't even really conceptualize what those accounts are, because as long as you're alive, and it may be different for women because they bring the babies into the fray. Maybe there's something to do with that, the way the women have really been targeted and cornered, and the men have been separated from the women. Like a lot of men are like terrified because of the way the laws are, to sort of like talk a bit, a bit raunchy, like with a bit of bit of life in there, a bit of spice, to get the women going. So the women are all dependent on other avenues of excitation, because the men aren't really stepping up to the plate, because that's by design. Society's been structured that way. The political correctness, feminism in politics, and that type of thing. So those issues draw on, an economic level, because if the men have got no money, the idea of men having money would be, now I've got the means to woo the ladies, to sort of like to court women, because obviously you need to court women in order to find your honey and see who's going to have your babies. But obviously that's not conducive to the situation that we currently have, which is controlled by the markets, the money markets, by the money changers, and no one's toppling the tables in the temples over, because they don't do it from the temples anymore. They do it from behind armed guards with bulletproof windows, and they've really made it like the rat run, where you get your little piece of cheese if you turn the hamster wheel 3 times over in 2 minutes, whatever. Do your little dance, little mouse dance, and you comply to the system. Then they release the funds from your national insurance, because your national insurance stroke social security is there to set up to look after all of your needs. So your needs are not being met. So you do need, you're being injured in the public, which is what you belong to, because you can't sustain your own life in the private, unless, well, there's no private individuals, isn't it? It's like the Bezos scenario, isn't it? Let's call it Bezos syndrome. you're swimming in all that money, you know what I mean? You've got swimming pools of money, and like Donald Trump and all like that, they they are bought in to the point where they're nose deep in it now. And if they squeal, then the bank says your account is being suspended until further notice. And now Donald Trump's got to get what's his name, Jeff Bezos. They've got to get the banjo and the harmonica out, stand on the street corner, and play a few songs, you know, for a few pennies, and see what the wind blows. Because all of the properties now they can't afford, so they get evicted out of that, and that's the way it rolls, you know. That's how the skiffle bands started, isn't it? The skiffle bands were a byproduct of the economic situation. You know, they were playing washboards and spoons and a couple of drumsticks on the floor. That's how poor they were. You know, they would have been playing the clog dancing, but they couldn't afford clogs. Whereas people could afford clogs before, and clogs are a really great pair of shoes to be wearing because they're made out of birch, is it? Or ash, I think it's birch. And birch on your feet is brilliant, like, you know, it's just got that spring, so your feet need that type of exercise. So let me just turn this fan off. So yeah, currency is what it's all ran on, and none of it exists. If you said to the banker, can you put me some currency in the wheelbarrow, please? The banker would be like, you are? So if he gives you, like in England, we don't have pound notes. We like it. The equivalent would be dollars, not the equivalent, but you know the denomination of the monetary unit is $1, £1. We don't have £1. We have £1 coins that are gold coloured and silver in the middle. Silver coloured. They're not silver. They're not gold. But the impression is from the old pound coins, you know, the old sovereign, which was pounds, or the guineas. Like, they were actually made from the metal, from brass or from copper, silver and gold. Now they're made up from, you know, chewing gum that you find on the floor. You know, when you see the fellas going around cleaning the streets, they scrape that up, send it to the Bank of England, and they put it in the compress and they mint it into chewing gum coin. So the pound notes that we have, the equivalent of the $1, which we don't have in a note form, is the lowest denomination is 5, then 10, then 20, then 50. So that's all our paper notes. And they're all Bank of England. And every year, the Bank of England will assess how much of those need to be printed to stimulate the economy based on what needs to be done, right? So insurance is about fixing things, isn't it? You know, when you're paying into the insurance, you're not drawing money from the insurance before anything's happened, because that's not how insurance works. So that's how the budgeting works, the political budgeting. It's not that the money's being put forward to you know, to address things that aren't accounted for as needing fixing. Like this is monetary policy. So what we're looking at is that you've got an accounting exercise going on behind the scenes. So you're not clever enough to put down on the piece of paper or on the electronic now, on the Excel spreadsheet. You're not deemed clever enough because you're not in the business of banking, which you can't get in the business of banking. You can't be an entrepreneur and open your own bank based on the same credit. You know, look at the American Constitution. and I've been over it before in the videos, that the law is the interpretation of the laws of nature, or of God's law, the universal laws. You know, the sky is up, the ground is down, the trees are wood. You know, these types of universal truths, they have laws that determine, you know, if you look at an oak leaf and you look at a maple leaf, the maple leaf will not be an oak leaf because there are laws governing it that aren't written down. These are the natural God-given laws that follow. So these are the interpretations of those laws that we're given to argue in the court. So in the US Constitution, it says a lot of stuff in the US Constitution, and a lot of stuff that isn't adhered to. So when it's not adhered to, the law of the contract, which is what a constitution is, social contract, what's being acted out becomes the law. This is all private law, which reminds me I need to phone the Solicitors Regulation Authority up. I think I'll do that now. So you kind of get where I'm going, don't you? It's all a load of phony baloney, just like the phony corona. Cheers.